Hello, welcome to Startup to Success. Today I have Athena Oanessian, who is a young, purpose-driven entrepreneur. She founded U Squared after graduating mid-pandemic, and she creates motivational goal planners, stickers, and pens that empower people to reach their full potential. Athena, I am so excited to have you. And I'm so excited that I got a chance to actually use your amazing organizer. Look how crazy busy.
Thank you. Love it. I love it.
But, as you know, the show is about startups, and who better than you to come on the show and share your journey and how you came up with the idea and how you took this idea and productized it. That's literally in my hand and I love it. So start.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy you love it. And I can't wait to share with the world everything that I've learned and some motivation. I want people to start their own businesses. So I'm very excited.
Well, that's one thing, it's so funny. When I opened, and I get a lot of organizers as a gift because everybody in my surroundings know that I'm obsessed with notebooks and organizers. But one thing that really stood out for me were the quotes you had almost in the beginning of every month. And that's where I was like, I have to bring her on the show. I have to interview her. She is more than just another, entrepreneur with an idea for an organizer. So
Thank you.
just tell me your journey. How did it all begin?
That very great question. I'm so excited to share this story. So I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and time went on. I went on and off to school, and then I graduated. I graduated mid-pandemic with a degree in hospitality management. And as you know, there were zero jobs. There were almost no jobs in hospitality. There was nothing that I would have wanted to do anyway. And I kept thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my life? This was a really good time. I was thinking, okay, maybe I could go to law school. So I signed up for the LSAT exam, and I kept thinking and reflecting. And I'm like, you know what? No, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. I really want freedom over my time. I want to do what I want. I want to do it when I want it. I want to be able to take vacation. I don't want to do a 2-week vacation. I want to go for as long as I want. I want to work from anywhere in the world. And I want to use my full potential into doing something that could change the world. So that's how that idea came up.
Wow, that is so inspiring. And I think most entrepreneurs that, and I'm so, I feel so blessed to be in your, honestly, and, to have this interview with you, because most people go through that when they're in their mid 30s and 40s. I'll be honest with you. So It looks like you're way ahead of the game. You're, you're very mature for your age. But I feel like most people that become entrepreneurs, that's usually the thought process, right? In the back of their minds, they're thinking, well, what do I want out of this life, right? Like, and none of us know how long we were here for. We don't know. We hope that we're here for another, we can live until
long time,
70 or whatever. But reality is we don't know. And when you start thinking about it in that sense, it really pushes you to be fearless and go for the things that you've dreamed about. But tell me about why an organizer, like what triggered that idea?
Sure. So when I was thinking after graduating, I was thinking, okay, what should I do? So I came up with the idea. I said, okay, I do want to work for myself. It's the only option I'm giving myself. And then I kept thinking, okay, what do I want to do? What can I sell? What am I passionate about? Is there a certain product that I've used that I don't like? Is there something I'm really passionate about? And I found my purpose. I found my purpose first. And the purpose was at the time to inspire 1 million people to reach their greatest potential. And now it's much larger than 1 million people, but that was the goal at the time. And I thought, okay, what can I do at a grand scale? I knew it had to be a product. And I had used planners in the past. I love using planners. There's nothing better to get yourself organized and productive. And I had used them all those years, and every single planner I had used had a lot of issues. The first planner I used was spiral bound, all the pages would fall out. And I upgraded to a higher quality planner, a premium planner, and that didn't have enough space. It didn't have any motivation to actually get me to achieve my goals. It's like, okay, here are some goal pages, here are some self-reflection pages, now go out into the world and do your thing. It's like, no, people need motivation. There was nothing on the market. It's like, I wanted to create it. I kept looking. I call myself the research queen. I could not find a single thing, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna create this thing. And that's how that started.
That's amazing. And it's so crazy. You mentioned, how, you started with your mission, you started with your why, right? And the why was
Yes.
you want to inspire 1 million people. Like, what's better than that? Like, and it's funny because that's been my mission with my Roma Leaf company, the
Love
CBD
it.
brand that I have. I initially was like, okay, well, I'm going to create a product that's going to solve my problem. But what is my why? Like, why am I doing this
Mm,
ultimately? And the why was
yes.
to add relief to millions of people's routines. So it's kind
I
of
love
funny
it.
how, like, it's we're both on the mission to, really help millions of people, right? But it all starts with
Yes.
an idea, and it takes a lot of action and hard work and research. It looks like, you know,
Yes.
you're like, it sounds like you just came out of a business school. So the steps that you're kind of walking us through. But that is the process. And that's usually what I recommend for entrepreneurs when they have an idea. I highly recommend them to do research to see if it exists. If it doesn't, then go out there and create it. But if you don't do your due diligence and you don't do enough research, it's almost a waste of time, because we do not need an extra organizer or an extra CBD brand or extra anything, a lipstick brand. The market is saturated with so much out there that
Yes.
in reality, if the product isn't different enough and it's not solving a problem, then it should not exist. Because then you're going to end up, this is why most businesses fail. But part of the reason is because they're lacking the research in the beginning, and then they invest so much money in producing it and so on. And it looks like that's
Yes.
definitely something that you clearly just knew from the get-go, that, hey, I need to do the research. I need to make sure that this is something that the idea doesn't exist, and then you created it. How was the process of the production part? So you kind of explained the phase one, where you did the research and the market analysis, competitor analysis, and all of that. But then what was the production like? I can't wait to hear that part.
So difficult and complicated. Production is actually one of the hardest parts. And I knew from the beginning, I only wanted these planners made and manufactured in the US. I was not going to compromise on that. I did get some quotes from China just to see what kind of pricing would they give me. And it was 3 times cheaper if I were to make it in China. But I knew, okay, I'm not going to do this. And so I did a lot of research. Everything goes back to the research. I got out a notebook and I wrote down every single printing and manufacturing company in California. And I called every single one. Hey, can you make this for me? 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 And I had to figure out, I knew um, I wanted the stitching, I wanted hand sewn binding, because I knew that, okay, these pages aren't going to fall out. They're not glued on like other planners. It's not spiral like other planners. They're going to stay, because I want people who use the U squared planners to be using them every single day and multiple times a day. Just like I do it, that's what I expect, that level from other people. So I want to make sure that it is durable, that it lasts the whole year, and heavy usage. So I knew that one of those things that had to be hand sewn. And then I knew I wanted certain things, and I called so many different places, and a lot of places said, no, we can't make that for you. We don't have those capabilities to hand sew. We don't have the capabilities to do this and that. And so I kept calling. It's about not giving up. So you get so many different no's, and then you don't just accept, oh, like they can't make it. Let's just give up on that. No, I called so many different places until I found a few different manufacturers that made it. And then I had to price compare and all that stuff. So that took a little bit of a while. And then I saw the manufacturing plants and I saw what company do I resonate with more that has the similar pricing. And I did negotiate a much better price than what I was offered because I knew what the average price was. So I knew the average price was a certain amount and they were the highest amount. And I said, hey, look, this is the average. It's a lot less than what you're charging. And they brought it down
Smart.
by quite a big number.
Was
So negotiating is so important. And you have to, you can only have negotiating power when you know,
oh,
when you've done your research and you know what is the average? So you don't just accept the first thing that comes along.
that's a good tip for beginners because sometimes they're like, well, I don't know what the industry average is and I don't know where to get it. Well, just research, call. And that's looks like that's all you did, just call and
Yes.
price check. What about quantities? Were they pretty large in the beginning? Was it a huge investment?
A huge, huge investment for planners. They're very, very expensive to make, especially in the US. So, about the quantities, I noticed there were some that just did 250 minimum quantity. And I knew that, okay, 250 planners, that's nothing. And actually, if I were to go a little bit up, and the pricing was insane on such a small quantity. And I knew if I ordered 500, they would be the same price as 1,000. And so initially I ordered 1,000 and I was told that it was going to be ready in 1 week.
Mhm.
And 1 week became, oh, it's going to be ready the first week of January. So 3.5 months later. 3.5 months later, and I said, this is not going to work for me. This is unacceptable. And I had already placed the order. So I set out to find another manufacturer that can make this for me a lot quicker. I found a great one, and those are the only ones that I'm using right now. They're amazing. And I paid a huge rush fee, and they were able to be done and made in time for Christmas. It was crazy. Production time is very, very long. And I didn't realize with any product that it takes so long. It's not just, hey, I want this in 2 weeks. Please have it ready. No, it takes months. It could take 3, 6 months or even longer. And now with the pandemic, there are huge supply chain issues and backups. And so you got an idea, don't expect it to come out really quickly. And typically higher quantities when you order, you can get a better price. So I all together ordered 2,000 planners last year.
Wow, that's amazing. That means like that's a huge thing,
Yeah.
accomplishment to go to those 1,000 levels. Because as a beginner, I remember when I first started Roma Leaf, you know, for us, just a simple thing like the box, the
Yes.
quantities were the prices. Like if we did 250 boxes and we have 5 different versions of a box that has different versions of milligrams. So it's not like we can use the same box and apply it for all the different versions of the CBD brand. And I didn't really
Yes.
anticipate how much the boxes were going to cost. And then I literally was like one of the highest expenses we've had in starting out Roma Leaf
Wow.
was the box. And I'm really all into sustainable and green and all of that. And I was just I was hating the process and hating the fact that I'm
Hmm.
wasting all this money on boxes that are going to be in the trash. And I'm like, I wish I didn't have to do boxes, but you know how people are, aesthetics is everything and all of that. But I remember going through the same struggles in a sense. And now that our quantity is higher, the prices make more sense.
Yes.
And finding the manufacturer was so hard. It was just really hard to, especially, I shy away from working with outside of US because obviously I want to contribute to the community and the to our economy. But
Same.
more than ever, I've heard such nightmares about working with vendors in China and so on, where
Hmm.
they can ship you tens and thousands of products at a half a cost, but then with a lot of mistakes inside, and that's
Yeah.
right. So
Yes, definitely.
I guess my next question would be, and I'm sure the listeners would be really anxious to know, what were the first steps that you took from a marketing perspective, um, or brand building, when you first got the planners in your hands, in your possession? You're like, okay, now I need to get this out there. What am I going to do?
Yes. I made so many mistakes. When they say, okay, hire your weaknesses, and marketing was never something I like to do. I hated it at the time. I love it now because it's so important. And I
Yeah.
think it's so important as an entrepreneur and business owner to know every single facet of your business before you hire out. But I decided, okay, let me hire a marketing company. And so
Oh,
the
God.
same thing, I did a lot of research and I narrowed it down to a few different companies. There was one company I really wanted to go with, and they said, Athena, we can't work in such a rush. You have to give us more time. I said, look, I don't have enough time. This was already around the end of October when I was looking to start November, December. And
Wow.
I found one, they seemed great. They came with a lot of data, which I thought, okay, like they like numbers. This might be a good one. I hired them. I spent almost $20,000 and they sucked. From $20,000, about 18, 17, 18 was their agency fees.
Oh,
And
wow.
the other 2,000 was on ad spend. I got one sale, one $67 sale from $20,000. It was unbelievable. I was so hurt. I was disappointed. I was angry. There were all the emotions that were stirred up in me, and we ran out of time. And so I fired them as a company, and I had to take matters into my own hands, which was already in January. So most people buy planners in November, December.
Right.
They still do buy dated planners in January. We're talking about dated planners. Undated planners can be sold throughout the year, but most people buy November, December, and we were approaching January. So I worked with lots of influencers. I ran different ads myself, and that worked very well for me, especially partnering with influencers. That was really, really great. However, it just, I wish I would have done that before. I wish I wouldn't have given to the marketing company. But you know what? I learned so much because now this year I set myself up. This year I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm working on so many different marketing streams and revenue streams, and firmly believe that that was not meant to be at the time. It just wasn't meant to be.
One of the reasons why I started this show, this podcast show, to share the journey, and the main reason, and I own a marketing agency, and as a owner of a
Yes.
marketing agency, and generally our clients are Fortune 500 and tech startups that get funded millions of dollars. As an agency, we don't charge like it's insane that they took that much money. And it's so sad how
Yeah.
so many people don't know, and they just fall for these companies, these marketing agencies that come out there and promise the world and end up not doing anything. And I've noticed that, as I just as an agency owner, but then as I started the startup on the side in the beginning, it was more like part-time, not even part-time. I would dedicate 5 to 10 percent of my time into Roma Leaf. I realized that in the beginning, it's kind of funny because I wear two hats, right? I have the marketing agency, but then I have the hat of a startup owner of a health and wellness
Yes.
brand. And in the beginning, I had my marketing agency do most of the marketing for Roma Leaf. But then I realized that Roma Leaf isn't ready for my marketing agency to handle the marketing. So
Wow.
I ended up
Wow.
separating the two, because one thing people don't think about is that as a brand, first you have to build the brand awareness. Then you start thinking about customer acquisition. Then you start thinking about performance marketing. My agency, Globalfly, is all about performance marketing, which means that you have to be an established brand that generates 5 million and above for my agency to help you acquire more customers, because the type of ads that we do is very expensive. We do podcast advertising that starts anywhere from 20,000 and all the way to 200,000 per month. We do Sirius XM advertising. We do so many different things, people-based marketing, VOD, like so many things, but those are costly things. So it's interesting that as a marketer, I had to stop and say, wait, I can't, my agency cannot help my other company right now, sadly, because I got to go through the baby steps. I have to crawl before I walk, before I run. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to start this show, is so that I can let people know the journey, and especially the marketing journey that I'm taking in order to build this brand in real time, so that people don't make the mistakes that I kind of did and you did. You know, at least mine, I was the marketing agency. I ended up not charging any fees to my other company, but we did invest some time in the beginning and tried things that the brand wasn't ready for. And so going back to the beginning, I feel like, yes, it's really hard, especially if you're not really aware of marketing and you're not sure where to begin from and you don't have the skill sets. But in reality, it's all out there. There's so much information out there. You just need to either, get interns on board, or or just figure it out yourself and slowly start that process as you grow. But it's amazing how you didn't give up, because most people after losing 20,000 would have given up and said, I'm done. That's a lot of money. And, it's just,
I think it was my purpose that kept me going, because I knew if I don't impact these people, then I'm doing them a disservice. And I knew my goals were so big. I knew the product that I created was amazing. And last year's planners, people were raving about it. They said it's mind blowing, it's life changing. I know you love it too. And this 2022, it will blow this out of the water. It is U Squared 2.0. I'm so excited about it. It's so phenomenal.
By the way, I love the name.
Thank you. Thank you.
So speaking of marketing, and that's one of my, to me, if a company, if a brand doesn't invest in marketing, I don't see survival. I just don't see them surviving. 100%. That's the reality. Because it's not like the old days where people are gonna search for stuff. But brands and products are being thrown at us daily. So as consumers, we're not out there necessarily researching for things. We're being stuff is being thrown at us. So if you're not out there doing the same thing, sort of creating that awareness and letting people know you exist, no one's ever going to find you. Now, speaking of influencer marketing, and it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because that's the one thing that has worked for Romilly from the beginning. And we've done paid, we've done bartering, we've done both, and both of them seem to work really well. And obviously, as a marketer, I know that like the core of Globify, what my agency does, has always been based on influencers, but it's influencers on radio, influencers on Sirius XM. Like we've partnered Boll and Branch with Howard Stern. So that's using an influential person like Howard Stern to promote the brand. So I'm a huge believer in influential people, and I'm not going to call them influencers, because every time I say influencers, people assume it's only on social media. They're everywhere. They could be doctors, they could be on TV, they could be, on podcasts. The way we always approach, and this is from a marketing standpoint, is usually let someone else try your product, see how they like it, and be your brand's ambassador. Talk about it, be the biggest fan and share it with their followers and the audiences. So in terms of influencer marketing on social media, and I know that's a very saturated space right now. There's so much competition with brands, also because now everyone's jumping into that wagon and trying to get influencers to promote. What are some of the successes and the challenges that you came across as you dabbled into that channel or type of marketing?
Sure. So I've done YouTube influencers, the influential people on YouTube, and then I've done The same thing on Instagram and Facebook. And I've noticed the YouTube videos, though that they cost a lot more, they're worth it a lot more because the influencer typically talks about it. If they love the product, maybe 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, and they explain. And I always tell them, I say, I want your genuine reaction. I'm not going to tell you anything to say. I don't script anything because I know a lot of brands. Okay, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
It's all on you. I want you to say honestly what you love about it. And if you don't love something about it, feel free to share that too. No one's really said that they don't love anything about it, but I'm open to that. I think people realize if someone's not being genuine, especially people who follow these people, they love these people. They're huge fans. And so there is a loyalty that's built up with these influential people. And that's why it works so well. And so I realized if we go the YouTube route, very, very successful. The Instagram route, not so much. That goes with the paid and the free. People who have even big followings sometimes don't share something that comes across the right way, or it might not be the right time. So I personally haven't seen a lot of success, and I paid different amounts, some a few $100, some like $100, $150, and those really haven't done well for me. And I know that sometimes it's not about necessarily the conversions, it's just about the brand awareness. So that works for the brand awareness. If it's, not that expensive, at least you're getting it out there. But the YouTube for sure worked a lot better for me, but I think it should be a mix of both.
Walk me through the process of YouTube influencers. Like, how did you begin that? What was the outreach?
Yes. Yes. So first thing that I did, I thought about what YouTubers do I like? What YouTubers do I follow? Because I am my own target market. So I know the product so well because I'm my own target market. I think if you create something that it's not your target market, that's 100% okay, but you got to do a lot more research. And I
Yeah.
still had to do a lot of research, but I look through, okay, who do I like? And I like different things. I'm a much multi-passionate person, but there were a few different influencers that I really liked that I personally watch. And then I did research, productivity, morning routine or something like that. I would look through and research to find videos and influential people that actually talk about something related to my planner. Sometimes they use planners, sometimes they talk about productivity. This is all about productivity and organization. So that was a huge step because you can't go with somebody who, first of all, has nothing to do with the realm of what
Right.
you're selling. For example, I'm not going to go to a stockbroker and say, hey, sell my planners. It makes no sense. Maybe a couple people would buy, but that's not enough for that campaign to make sense. So it has to be people that would use your product or do something close to it. So it goes back to the research. You have to know your target market. You have to know what they like, what they don't like, what are they searching for, what are they passionate about, where do they hang out. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do to know, okay, let's find our ideal customer avatar. Who are these people? And we're not one-dimensional people. My people love so many different things and they hang out so many different places, and they're smart people, they're hardworking, they care about being successful, and all of this stuff matters so much. So when you do your research is power. I can't stress that enough.
That's a good, that's so important. Thank you for that tip. Now, in terms of approaching them, obviously I'm in the industry, and a lot of times some of the influencers, we believe in micro and nano influencers, especially when it comes to the social media platforms like Instagram and so on. As far as YouTube goes, I personally have been working with YouTube influencers since 2012, I want to say, because we were huge believers in the visual and the auditory explanation of a product and how it makes them feel and so on. But like, did you come across, was it easy to lock them in, to get them to promote your product? Like, was it expensive? Like, I would love to know the price range, and did you have to go through agencies? Like, what was the process, the execution process like?
Sure, sure. So when I would find a YouTuber that I really liked, I would go through their about section and they would have an email there. So sometimes it would be their personal email, which is a lot easier to go through. And then sometimes it would be an agency
Yeah.
email. And so I looked online how to craft a pitch to, to a
Smart.
YouTuber to promote my products. And so I picked and chose which parts of that email that I liked. And then I added my own personality, and because I chose influencers that I knew would love my products, that went really well. Sometimes if they didn't go through an agency, it would be a fairly quick process, and I would have them sign a contract, and then we would get started. We would have a Zoom meeting. We'd explain a little bit about the product and the time frame and all that logistical stuff. If it was through an agency, it did take longer, especially when we go back and forth with certain things that we want, and then back and forth
More
with the
expensive.
contract. Sometimes more expensive, more time consuming. So that's not something that you can do in a couple of days. That might take a few weeks. That might take a month. So you got to plan ahead for that. And that part of the process was fairly easy. And what else did you ask me that you'd like me to talk
Yeah, I
about?
guess like in terms of getting them to do what you wanted, like the price range, like what were
Yes.
the price? Because most people
Pricing.
think YouTube influencers, oh my God, because listen, my agency, we've worked with YouTube influencers that would charge $60,000 for
Yes.
1 minute brand integration, 1 minute. But you're talking about mega influencers. But I like for the startup world, like it's not realistic.
Yes.
You can't spend 60K on one
Of course.
influencer, and it's not gonna do anything. So what were the price ranges like?
Sure, sure. So the price ranges with the nano YouTube influencers, $100.
Wow.
Higher a little bit, a few $100s, a little bit higher, like $1,500, even higher. There was one YouTube influencer, I really wanted to use her. It was $20,000. And but it wasn't the right time. I knew this could work, but it wasn't the right time. It was, I think, April, and that would have been such a waste of money because people aren't going to buy dated planners in April, you know. So I chose, I'm going to save my money. I'm not going to make this mistake. So I held off and I had to do more things on my own, but now I'm in a better position where it's the good timing and I could approach them. I could be like, "Hey, I do want to work with you," and we go from there. So the pricing really varies, but I think that shouldn't turn someone off. If someone does their research, they could work out a deal. Sometimes you could do a revenue split and give a certain dollar amount or a percentage. So it really depends, and I think it also depends what kind of product you have and what the price range of your product is. Because if it's something that's so expensive,
Yeah.
typically I believe maybe you should expect to spend more money because it's something not that many people are going to buy, and so you want a bigger influence. You don't want like a tiny reach because maybe it's you're selling a mattress and that's $2,000. Not everybody is going to buy that, and especially a mattress. What it's 7 years you keep it, then you buy a new one. So how many people are on the look out for a mattress and at that time and just through that one influencer? So there are lots of different variables that I think you have to do your research on your pitch. You have to do research on finding the right influencers. You have to do the reach out, and you got to come to some sort of conclusion and something that you both are willing to work for.
Exactly. Thank you. That you made a good point. Like depending on your lifetime value, right? Because if you're selling a mattress, for example, your profit margins are larger. So you have to think about how much you are willing to spend to acquire that customer. And we, in our marketing world, we call it CPA, cost per acquisition,
Yes.
which most startup businesses don't really know, but it's important to figure it out as soon as possible, because then you're able to decide how much you want to allocate per campaign and how are you going to work the budget backwards to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to spend 1,000 on this influencer, let's say, how many sales am I supposed to get to break even? Because ultimately, in the beginning,
Yes.
all you kind of should be caring about is breaking even, because you're building a brand, but then once you go over to phase two, then you want to make money and you want to turn the dollar into $2 and so on. And so it's super important. Now, in terms of people wanting to purchase your planners or organizers, where would they go? Tell us where to go to
Sure.
start buying this amazing thing for 2020, which I'm so excited to see the 2020.
2022.
I'm sorry, did I
Yes.
keep saying
Use
2020?
you did. That's long over.
You can you can tell that the 2 years flew by for me. So
They did. They did.
2022. Wow, that's crazy.
The best place to the best and the only place to get these planners at the moment is my direct website, usquared.co, not .com. So that's YOUSQUARED.co. And I have the planners, I have motivational stickers and pens, and I have this awesome guide on how to set goals that make sense and are achievable. And I also have a bunch of blogs on there. So there's a lot of amazing content and a lot of amazing products on there. So I'm really excited.
That's amazing. And then if people want to reach out to you or just follow you, where would they find you online?
Sure. Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest at U Squared Productivity.
I love it. I love it. And we'll have this information in our show notes as well for people to be able to access it and start there. I mean, there's nothing better than gifting someone with something that's going to simplify their daily lives and keep them organized.
Yeah.
So as the holidays are coming up, I think it's the perfect timing for you to kind of share this with us. My last thing is going to be, if you were to give advice to someone who's really, who's got an idea but isn't taking the leap yet, isn't starting it, what's the advice that you would give them?
Great question. I love it. My biggest advice would be get to know yourself. Get to know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what do you like, what do you not like, what do you want from your life? Because once you figure that out, that shapes everything that you're going to do. If you even want to be an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, what are you going to do? What's your idea? Especially if someone's stuck, they don't know. And anyway, in general, it's so important, even for big companies, to figure out, hey, are we following our vision? Do we have a purpose? What is it? And those big companies too can always shift and improve. But especially for the startup entrepreneur, get to know yourself, because it's mainly just you in the beginning, and you got to rely heavily on yourself and your skill set. You have to learn. I've invested thousands of dollars into courses and into my own education because I really value everything that I learn, and learning from other people's mistakes and successes and experience. So study yourself, get to know yourself. This might take a few weeks, it might take a few times, months. I really recommend reading the book Start with the Why. That helped me find my purpose,
Yeah.
and it was phenomenal. So
Yeah.
that's my best advice.
Thank you, Athena. I feel like we need to come back and do another show with you because there's so much more I want to cover, but we are running out of time. But I want to thank you so much for
Happily.
Startup to Success, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show again and talk about some of the challenges. Maybe next time we can talk about more challenges.
Sure.
and since it's part of the journey, right? Like you
Yes,
can't
absolutely.
expect entrepreneurship to be easy, and I am personally
No.
obsessed with the challenges. I know this sounds sick,
Yeah.
but I am. So it looks like you are too. And
I am.
and thank you for creating something so amazing that has simplified my life. And again, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show soon.
Thank you. So happy to do this interview with you. Thank you so much for having me.